In this lesson, we will learn how to mirror bone systems in Max. Let's double click on the femur bone to grab the entire hierarchy, all bones that we'd like to mirror. From there, in our bone tools, let's go ahead and now choose the mirroring tool. And notice an option page opens where we can determine how we'd like to mirror this across. So the first section here over to our left would be the mirror axis or mirror plane. Chances are you're going to stick with the x-axis. If I were to just cancel this out, just to kind of show you this, I'll go ahead and adjust the view. Let's take a look at the axis in our viewport. You can see that x is pointed in the direction that we would like this system to be transported to. Alright, so typically when you go ahead and mirror, it's going to be the x-axis that you slide your bones along. If we were to go back to our mirror tool, keeping with the x, notice we have this offset parameter that we could use to adjust how much this system is offset in this given direction. But notice you have other choices here. You can go ahead and choose any type of mirror plane if you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and stick with x. Now, before we start to get back to this offset, I'd like to point out the two options we have at the top right. And this allows each bone's orientation to be flipped. So currently, with it set to Y, this is going to give us a mirrored result, meaning that as we start to rotate our bone objects, they're actually going to rotate in a mirrored way. To kind of show you this, I'll go ahead and choose OK. I'll go ahead and grab, let's say, the two tibia bones. Let's go to our rotate tool and let's make sure that it's set to gimbal mode. Now, as we start to rotate, you can see that we're getting this mirroring effect as the two bones kind of fan out away from each other. Sometimes this is great to use when reading animation. So as animators start to tweak animation data of a skeleton, this will give us an idea then of what values we need to use on either side. But if we were to use the other option, I'll go ahead and undo back the mirror. Go back to the mirror tool. If we were to use Z and choose OK, notice it's almost as if we simply clone that skeleton. We're not going to get that mirroring behavior at all. Alright, so chances are you'll stick with Y. So I'm just going to go ahead and undo this back. Go back to the mirror tool. And I'm going to go ahead and set the orientation back to Y. And we'll start to adjust the offset. Now, right now, as we start to adjust this offset value, it's kind of like we're just eyeing it in place. Sometimes that will work out great, but what if you wanted a perfect mirror? What if you needed it to be perfectly mirrored to the other side, given your character's size and proportions and such? Well, if that's the case, let me show you a quick trick you can use to get an exact mirror. What we'd want to do is first go ahead and clone the system. So let's go ahead and choose OK. And now, what we'll do is go ahead and I'll just close out the bone tools. What we'll do is create a point helper. This is just a temporary object we can use to find the position of the original root. And then we'll want to mirror that across and snap our root here to that helper. So if we were to head over to our Create panel, we can now choose Helpers and grab a point helper. I'm going to go ahead and have the display set to cross. It might be easier to work with the object that way. So with cross selected, I'm going to go ahead and click in the scene to create a quick helper. And now we can right click to exit the tool. We can use Shift A, which is our quick align tool, to quickly align the position of the helper to our root. Alright, great. So from there, with our move tool set to world mode, let's go ahead and switch this to world. What this will show us is the world coordinates of the selected object. So right now we have about negative 22.516 in the x-axis. That's the axis that we'd like to mirror across. When we go ahead and switch this value to positive 22, you can see now we have mirrored this helper. Let's go on to the opposite side. And now if we were to go ahead and select the root that we've mirrored, that femur root, go ahead and use Shift A to enter quick align. And if we were to now go ahead and select the helper that we'd like to snap to, notice we have a perfect mirror. All right, so I wanted to kind of point that out to you. That's just one way we can go ahead and create a mirrored system without having to kind of guess where it should be positioned using the offset parameter. All right, so the next thing you'd want to do after mirroring is to kind of go through and check your naming convention of each bone. So if I were to go in and take a look here, you can see that each will now have a suffix of mirrored. All right, so this kind of helps to just make sure that we know for certain which systems have been mirrored. And then what we'd want to do is simply go ahead and remove the name mirrored, and instead of an L, we'd want to replace that with an R. All right, so we'd want to do that for the other bone objects here. Again, when we get to the tibia, we'd remove mirrored, and we'd replace that L with an R. Great. So in this lesson, we've taken a look at Max's really neat bone mirroring tool. In the next lesson, we'll take a look at another really cool feature that allows us to colorize bone objects.